These scenarios are based on suggestions that have been sent in by delegates. Hopefully you won't recognise your situation exactly, but you may recognise elements of your situation as they've been blended from a number of different suggestions. So we're going to do another one for you now.
I'm Peter. I'm a leading academic.
I'm Anna, and I'm interim head of corporate communications. Well, hello.
Anna?
You weren't expecting me?
No, I thought I was meeting David.
Well, unfortunately, David's had to step aside temporarily, and so I'm holding the reins for a while, as it were.
We've been working for a couple of months on this. Did he bring you up to speed? Have you read the notes?
It was a very limited handover, I have to say. Wasn't much time, so.
I thought you were still in Africa.
Well, you know, Peter, there's a lot of short contracts, and that one's finished, and so here I am. This is the next one. New job, new story to tell. But you're looking really well. I mean, God, how long was it that... It must be 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Did you... So you went straight from the Masters on, and then you did your PhD, and you stayed on?
3 PhDs.
Gosh, really? You just love that academic life.
I think it's very important.
I know it is. But at the end of the day, Peter, the work that you're doing is actually funded by the taxpayer. And if we can't get them on side, you might find that one day there just isn't the support for it anymore.
That's why I was talking to David, and we were working ways that we could get the information from the research out into the public arena.
Yes, it's very, very important to engage the public. But I think perhaps there's just a slightly different change of emphasis now, which is more about a relationship, more about a dialogue, more about a real sense of contact, rather than just telling people things. I mean, you know the stuff, Peter, don't get me wrong. Obviously, you're the expert in knowing the stuff. But sometimes you need a little bit of help with the expertise of sharing it.
Yes.
And that's why I'm here.
I'm a little uncomfortable, though, because, no offence meant, but you've taken a slightly different path since we were at university.
I have. I've taken so many paths. I've been here, I've been there, It's been a dance, Peter. It's been fabulous. It's been a dance, and I've had the most wonderful opportunities to travel, to see all parts of the world. I mean, you know, the thing about a business account is you can just go places.
My concern is that I would like the facts to be in the public domain, not some spun fantasy.
Well, the facts are in the public domain, should anybody wish to look them up. I think what we're trying to do is to communicate some kind of narrative, to kind of make the story mean something to people.
I'm a little uncomfortable that it's you, Anna, I have to admit. Personally, I don't think that fracking in Central Africa is an ecological benefit.
Peter, I'll tell any story that people pay me to tell.
Exactly. That's my concern. I would like the facts to be in the public domain, not spin. I think the facts are interesting enough in themselves. They're fascinating, and it's of great benefit to the public. So I'd like the facts to get out there.
Well, look, there's two ways of looking at it, isn't it? Take a bee, for example. A bee is a nasty thing that's going to sting me. Ouch! Or a bee is a lovely little thing with a rugby jersey and boots. Yeah? You No, we've got to get people to love these creatures and not think of them as kind of dirty, dangerous,
I have never said that bees are
painful.
dirty or dangerous. I've never said that they're dirty or dangerous.
No, but some people do run away screaming when they see a bee, Peter, and we need to change that. And just giving them numbers isn't necessarily going to change their feelings.
If we explain what the numbers mean, then the people will appreciate the numbers. That's what we need to do. We need to get people to appreciate the data, not spin the data into some fairy tale about bees in jumpers, for God's sake.
If we don't engage from the very, very first point at which a child can come to understand, Peter, you want people to study, don't you? You want people to study science. You want them to follow in your footsteps, to kind of follow the path that you've laid out in some way, and therefore we need to engage them all over the place in terms of how fascinating it is, how interesting it is, how important it is, how it makes them feel. All of these things. And to me, Peter, it doesn't matter if it's fracking or bees. This is what I do. I'm an expert.
When's David coming back?
David's not coming back. David's going to be off for quite a while. You're not going to like this. But you are going to have to find a way of working with me.
So, who took sides this time? And whose side? Who's for Peter? Ooh, your turn. Who's for Anna? In corporate communications. So, 5 minutes in your groups. What's playing out this time? What are the differences this time?
The core of what it is, everything about it. For her, extremely using and what it can do.
I know you could talk about this one all day, couldn't you? But can we come back? And anyone like to tell me what they think the principal differences going on here were?
I think that one had such important learning for me because I'm often in similar situations and...
with people you have history with.
And I tend to focus on what's going on in the present. And what that brought home to me was how important the past is. Whatever your past relational history with someone can play out to the detriment of the present very quickly, unless it's dealt with.
Indeed.
So, thank you.
We look at this list. For me, the thing that really stood out is that there's a massive clash of values here. Someone who's very, very values-driven, really matters what they're doing, and someone who will tell whatever story they're paid to tell. And a huge mismatch then in respect between them.
Anna, was saying, you should behave like this. This is how to communicate. But she wasn't listening to him. And he, unfortunately, was rather rigid. And he was in a state of shock at seeing this past whatever relationship
she
we
had
think
the
it
upper
was.
hand because she knew and he didn't.
Yeah, so he felt very threatened.
Yeah. I'd like to throw in another small bit of psychology, if I may, because I think there's also a personality difference playing out here, which is... I'm going to have to click through this one quickly. Some of you may be familiar with this. I've taken this from Myers-Briggs, which is quite a well-known personality model. It's the difference between sensing and intuition. If you've come across this, it's to do with how do you take in information, what do you pay attention to? And a sensing person pays attention to real things, tangible things in the real world. So those of you who have spent your life studying the habitat of wading birds and can tell me exactly what the decline and fall of particular wading birds means for the state of the environment, you're probably sensing people. Intuitive people take in a bit of information, but they're more interested in what do I do with that now, and ideas and moving on. Those of you who've spent your life talking about public engagement, brand management, probably more like that. And you are literally seeing the world in different ways from each other. When you look at a situation, you're focusing on different things. There's also, I think, perhaps a little bit of how you make decisions, which is the thinking versus feeling thing. It's head-heart. So the thinking person likes to make objective decisions based on tangible criteria, and that's Peter. And the feeling person likes to make decisions based on what feels right, and that's Anna. Okay. The other thing there is, as you've said, the whole thing about the history, and they did nothing to try and rebuild trust. In fact, I don't think she could have been any more patronising. And they constantly prodded each other. They instead of trying to look for common ground, they were constantly looking at undermining each other's status, the status of what they do in the world. And that ain't going to help. You might not like what people do or the way that they do it, but if you've got to work with them, you've got to work with them, then don't keep undermining each other. It's really going to... You'll just ratchet up the mistrust rather than trying to build something. So it's about looking for common ground. So I'm going to move on to just some kind of fundamentals about partnership working. Assume other people see the world differently from you. I was going to say, don't assume they see it in the same way, but actually it's much more fundamental than that. Assume they see it differently. And I don't just mean they have a different opinion, I mean they literally focus on different things, see the world totally differently. And I think there's kind of a way on which intellectually we can all get that. The next one is the hardest bit. Except that doesn't make them wrong. I think we all kind of think, well, people do see it differently from me, but if they were better in whatever way, they wouldn't. Be aware of, this is another little bit of psychology, the fundamental attribution error. This is to do with, to what do you attribute behaviour, particularly bad behaviour? If it is somebody else's bad behaviour, there's masses of research of this, someone else's bad behaviour, you attribute it to something in their character. If it's your behaviour, it's something to do with the situation. So I miss a deadline, and, I'm sorry, and I really shouldn't have done it, but I had a lot on, and, there was a bit of a domestic crisis, and la. You miss a deadline, you are lazy and irresponsible. We all do it. And the way to get past that is to try not to label the person, to just sort of say, look, I'm disappointed you missed a deadline, rather than you're lazy. Even saying to yourself, I'm disappointed he missed a deadline. I wish he didn't speak to me like that. As soon as you get into he's a bully, he's arrogant, he's this, she's that, it's less helpful. Focus on the behaviour. Cultivate a knowledge and understanding of yourself. It's very, very easy to pick up little bits of psychology and then play amateur psychologist and apply it to other people. And believe me, if you're a professional psychologist, it's even worse. Apply it to you. So which is why I was saying to you, what do you find out about yourselves by looking at these situations? So, for example, if you are in a partnership working situation with somebody who's working remotely from you, and you know that it will make you anxious if you don't hear from them a lot, tell them. Say, can we have a meeting once a week or a catch-up phone call, or I'd like an email, round robin every now and again, whatever it is. Because if you don't, and if you don't know that about yourself, 2 weeks into the project, you'll be saying, she's hopeless. She just never contacts me. She's hiding something. And, whatever script and fancy you run in your head will be all to do with what that person is doing wrong. So own the bit that you need. Cultivate that understanding of you. What do you do under pressure? Do you hide? Do you take control? What do you do? Look for common ground. That's the bit where, in that second scenario, Anna and Peter really could have made something of it, was to look for some more common ground instead of constantly highlighting the difference. And finally, clarify expectations frequently, particularly when things are going well. So in the first scenario, as we saw, when everything's going well, you just make huge assumptions that actually you all get it, and you don't necessarily. So keep clarifying them. And as somebody pointed out to me yesterday, it's clarify theirs as well as your. You can spend a lot of time making sure people understand what it is you want, but do as much listening and find out what it is that they want.